You want young people to resist the times. You can make yourself stronger than I ever could have been if you develop discipline, if you work against all of the addictions, all of the sugar rushes, all the dopamine fixes that people are surrounding you with. If you cut short your time on Instagram, if you force yourself to learn a foreign language, if you get your children to play the piano, etc., they're going to be the biggest weirdo in their neighborhood. People are going to wonder what's wrong with that. But they are going to be the masters of the future. One of the most important life skills that anybody can develop is focus and concentration. I know when I try and figure out an idea for a book that I'm writing, and I give it an hour, and then I distract and I go away, I lose something. But if I dig for 4 or 5 hours for 10 days into this one problem, like a madman, obsessed with it, I get somewhere. I get some truth to it, And Steve Jobs, the person that we venerate, he was the master of that. Unfortunately, the person who ironically created the iPhone that's driving us all crazy, but he would close his door, leave me alone for 24 hours, I'm going to think this through. You don't realize the power that you have with your brain when you focus on something simple for enough time. It's like a drill boring into a piece of wood. You got to keep on boring and boring and boring until you get all the way through. Success early on is very, very dangerous. And I can say for me, I had nothing but failure until I was 38. My parents were starting to get really worried about their son. I had 50 different jobs. I had never worked more than 11 months at one job. So I knew failure, man. I knew what it's like to work in the worst, most boring offices with all the worst politicking going on. So I could never take it for granted. I could never rest on my laurels and go, wow, I'm successful. It's not a drug. I knew how hard it was to get there, and I knew each time I write a book, it could fail. Even at this point, I still think my books are going to fail. It's terrible to wait till you're 38. It's better to do it when you're 24, but it's also a blessing in a way. Amor fati. The key to everything is actually being strategic with yourself and looking at yourself and being honest with yourself. So if you figure out what your life's task is, if you figure out I was meant to start a business or to write a book or whatever, and it really connects to you, and you have a great love and excitement about it, then when people are being political and they're trying to distract you or they're giving you bad advice, you have the energy to move past it. But if you're filled with doubts and insecurities, if you go, I kind of want to write a book, but maybe I want to start my own restaurant, or maybe I want to write poetry, or maybe I want to be a rock star, it's never going to add up to anything, right? And then when people come up with their bad ideas, or they're political, or they're envious, you'll fall for it. So you have to have a real good, solid sense of who you are, what makes you different, and what you love. I think of Leonardo da Vinci, who had a quote at the end of his life saying, after you've worked really hard during the day, you've toiled at something, you go to sleep and you have this great feeling like you accomplished something. But when you die, do you have that same feeling? Like, I did something, I accomplished something, now I can die in peace. And I think the worst thing is in life would be to reach the age of 60, 65 and go, God, I could have been so much more. I could have created something. I could have done what I said I was going to do. I could have written that book, but I didn't. To me, I tell anybody, if you're in your 20s, don't ever have that feeling. And it'll come quicker than you imagine. Realize that you want to reach that end with a sense of, I did what I felt I could do when I was a child. I had these dreams and I reached them. You can be too focused. You don't allow something else into your life. That you're kind of heading down this one funnel. And sometimes, I remember Paul Graham was telling me this, sometimes like somebody from the outside sees the solution. You're so focused on something that you're not able to pull back and see other perspectives. You're not able to enjoy yourself, to relax sometimes. I'm a big believer in putting in productive downtime in your life. I know that sounds like a contradiction in terms, but there are things that I waste my time on, and I'm very proud that I do waste my time on, right? Like certain sports websites. What do I get from that? I get nothing.
Sure.
But I take my brain off of this thing, and it kind of relaxes me, and I find it very helpful. If I was continually thinking about these problems, I would have had a heart attack by now.